Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Up in Knoxville. We'll go to Gary Harris, Tide 100.9 WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa, and then be joined by Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com down in Gainesville, Florida, in the swamp with his daily thoughts. Love hearing what he has to say about the Gators, SEC, and college football. A man who is not afraid to give you his one final pithy thought that'll make you really think. And also Dudley Dawson for the ECS House Industries Razorback Report will join us as well. Both the Razorbacks and Auburn are off. A lot going on, man, right now. Before Gary Harris gets here, you got to say, if you're Auburn, what are you going to do about an athletic director? We had John Hartwell, currently the AD at Utah State, on with us back here the September 1st. What an interview. I'm not on a search committee pick an athletic director, but if you want a guy with got a lot of business experience that has Auburn blood, who's never worked there but has seen Auburn from the outside, worked at Ole Miss, he's been an AD at Troy, he's in his 8th year at Utah State, man, John Hartwell. Why say no when it's so easy to say yes to that? Auburn, make the right decision. Don't go make some unilateral hire of some out of bounds person. You've already done that in football, and look where Auburn is. So Auburn people are ready to rally and support, but they need leadership. The void of leadership is everywhere. Also want to say, Jimmy, we remember 45 years ago, I remember it was a school night, Leonard Skinner, man, the plane went down, 26 people on board, lost 6 of them, including lead singer Ronnie Van Zant, 45 years ago, Galesburg, Mississippi. If you ever go there, I know Michael Jordan and Clay Bethel, a lot of friends of mine have been there. There's a memorial there, but it is it's a sight, man. And that plane crash went down, but that band lives on. Ain't nothing better. Freebird, Sweet Home Alabama, Give Me 3 Steps. You're not going to find better music. They just get better. They're like a great bottle of French wine in a wine cellar. It's 200 years old. It just gets better with time, but long live Skinnerd, as they say. Jimmy, looking around, Gary Harris will be on here with us. There's been a lot of talk this week about the Tennessee-Alabama game, and I was there. Audrey and I were up there. You know, you were there. Crazy. Yet we couldn't even communicate with one another because there were so many people in Knoxville around that stadium. Might be a good idea to get one of those lesser known carriers where there's less competition for the phone lines. But, I'm the takeaway from all this is, hey, Tennessee got them a big win, first time since 2006 over Alabama. And I love hearing what Gary, has to say always about this. And I look at it, Alabama, they hate losing. Tennessee, they better not be celebrating forever. They got UT Martin Saturday, but I look for Alabama to come out and play lights out football. And Gary Harris joins us now, Tide 100.9 WVUA Channel 23. You need to watch that show statewide in Alabama Tuesday nights at 6:30 with our good friend Rodney Orr of Tider Insider. And Gary, I was just saying, one of the blessings that Alabama has, and anybody that's competitive, I want to be the first one out of bed every morning. I mean, that's just how I am. You hate losing so bad that you work hard so it doesn't happen. And when you suffer a setback, you work hard so it doesn't happen again. I would love to be the paint on the wall in those coaches meetings with Nick Saban. And God help the special teams guys. He did not look happy, but man, you know what? You got Mississippi State. That's the best thing that can happen. You got another game to focus on coming to town this Saturday to Bryant-Denny. Let's get your thoughts, man, because we've talked a few times this week. A lot of football to be played. one loss doesn't take you out of the championship hunt.
Yeah, Rob, I definitely think that they're glad they're playing this week, and the bye is after this Mississippi State game, as you said, to be able to come back and play. It's homecoming, which is going to be exciting, and tonight game at Bryant-Denny against a Mississippi State team that is certainly a good football team, but we know the record between these two schools over the years. I mean, it's victories for Mississippi State against Alabama have been few and far between, and I know the last 3 times they played in Bryant-Denny Stadium, I mean I don't think Mississippi State scored a touchdown. It's been, they've been blowouts. But, none of that really matters now. Alabama beating Tennessee 15 times in a row. Every year, every week, it's a new game. And for Alabama, I think that, the focus has got to be on Alabama and, cleaning up the mistakes that we've seen really all season long. I mean, they've had more penalty flags thrown on them than any program in the country. Some of them at obviously very inopportune times. Not that there's ever a good time to get a penalty, but you know what I'm saying. And, they've been inconsistent throughout their football team. I mean, it's, particularly on defense. You felt like early on this defense had a chance to be really, really good. And even against, Arkansas and A&M, I thought the defense played pretty well. Some of those points that A&M and Arkansas scored were attributed to either turnovers or kicking game errors. But then against Tennessee, I mean, the defense, the back end, the secondary just got absolutely hemorrhaged, and the defensive front couldn't get pressure on Hendon Hooker. So it was a recipe for disaster. And, 52 points, the most Alabama's given up in a game since 1907. And they still almost won the game. And probably from an Alabama perspective, you're saying should have won the game. So there's a lot to work on. And at the same time, there's still, I think, a lot to be excited about. I mean, you look at the way Tennessee's playing and the season they're having, and you look at most teams that have gone in there and, given up 52 points and had 17 penalties and mistakes in the kicking game. And you probably would say, hey, we're going to get beat by, 25, 30 points. And that didn't happen to Alabama. It took all of that, and Tennessee still was, fortunate to win the game. So it's really like most teams. There's a lot of good, and there's some bad, and there's some things that have to be fixed, or Alabama won't run the table. They'll lose again if they can't get some of these things corrected, and that's kind of the reality of where they're at. It's a 5-game season now, 4 games in the SEC. If they win them all, they're going to be in Atlanta and playing for an SEC championship game against whether it's Tennessee or Georgia. And if they don't get some things fixed and continue to make some of these mistakes and have the penalties, they're probably going to drop another game or 2. So the season's right there to be determined. But looking at this team at this moment in time, and I try to be as transparent with you guys as I can every week, sitting here right now talking to you, I don't know which way it's going to go. And, we'll just have to see, because I thought this Alabama team going into the season was going to be a juggernaut. I think they have the best quarterback in the country. And when you have the best quarterback in the country, it gives you, I think, an advantage or leg up on every other team. And then I thought they had the parts to go with it. But the inconsistency, penalties, is the coaching staff as strong as some staffs he's had in the past? I think you can question that. So there are a lot of questions surrounding this Alabama team, and they'll either answer those questions and do what I think they're capable of doing, and that's getting to Atlanta to play for the SEC championship and a spot in the playoff, or they won't.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they're gonna lose a game or 2.
Yeah. And I felt like going into the Tennessee game, there were 2 scenarios. That's how I looked at Alabama. The close win on the road at Texas, the close win at home as a 24-point favorite against A&M was either that's going to pull that locker room together really close when you win those kind of games, which typically happens, or the dam's about to burst. And, you gave up 52 points. I think Jimmy pointed out 571 total yards for Tennessee, 569 for Alabama. That's almost 1,200 yards of total offense. But you're right. It's 15 penalties on the road at Texas. That's not typical of Nick Saban teams. 17 on the road, both in environments of 100,000 plus fans. There are going to be a certain amount of times when you can't hear the signals, but you use hand signals. You prepare for that. And that gets down to the staff and everyday preparation. I'm with you, Gary. If Alabama can't fix these problems, special teams get so little. There's a guy that's a kicker, a college kicker for the University of Memphis, doing some rehab. And when we're swimming every day, he's in there doing some rehab. And I talk to this kid a lot. And he said basically special teams, it's just the way it is. People don't realize how little coaching goes on with those guys, but it's a third of every game: defense, offense, special teams, all that stuff. It's big in the end. What you don't do Monday through Friday shows up in a bigger way on Saturday. But Gary, isn't it easy? I know this sounds crazy, but you can get bored with winning, especially if you've won at a clip and you've got guys on the team that have never been through tough times. Sure, they lost some games in middle school and high school, but in college, sometimes a loss is what it takes to make people listen, because coaches can talk to the players all day long. The question is, are they getting through to them? That's always the big question. Jimmy, jump in here whenever you're got some questions, I know, for Gary.
Well, I think Gary's right in that it can go either way. After the loss to A&M last year, Bama went on to have some hard-fought battles against an LSU team that everybody thought Bama would blow out of Bryant-Denny, but yet it went down to the last play. Alabama had to knock a pass down on the goal line. You had the shootout against Arkansas. You had really, you can almost say the miracle Iron Bowl win with the 98-yard drive in the last 2 minutes to send the game to overtime. So, you would think after that A&M loss, and Will Anderson was very vocal about it, about the need for urgency to kind of fix these issues. And again, despite that, it was, a struggle on a number of Saturdays. So there's no way to know it and to know. But kids these days, they seem to, bounce back a lot better than the fans do, because, they get right back at it. And they've already had the heavy work day on Tuesday. So mentally, you've got to think the game plan's pretty much already in. So they just need to focus on playing. But one thing, and I feel horrible for Mississippi State. They're going to be playing with a heavy heart because one of their players died. And when you're an 18-year-old freshman who's playing college football at this level, for something like that to happen, and again, the code word suddenly and unexpectedly, it's just tragic. We don't need to get into that, but still, though, it makes it really tough for the coaching staff, Mike Leach, and the players and all that. You have to wonder how they're going to react. And we all have to remember at the end of the day, this is not outcomes of football games. Although we tend to act like it and treat it that way, it's not a matter of life and death. Well, what has happened is life and death. And we have to, realize that this, especially coming into this game.
Yeah, Gary, that is really Sam Westmoreland from Tupelo. He was
right.
He's going to be 19 tomorrow, and it's brutal. And then one thing that they will be, the Mississippi State whole family are in our prayers. You don't ever want to see that, and I never ever in my life have cheered when another player was injured or anything happened. But Jimmy, thank you for mentioning that. Gary, you were waxing eloquently about what's going on. And I do love the fact that you're transparent. You say what you think you see. Talk about the defense. This is year 4 for Pete Golding. What do you think?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think it's kind of multi-layered, Rob and Jimmy. I think that, first of all, as I said, there's no way around it. That defense was just sabotaged on Saturday. I mean, they got just beat in every facet. And of course, unfortunately, there at the end of the game, when I thought Malachi Moore had made a great play to possibly win the game, it was taken away with the pass interference. But didn't get the pass rush. I do think schematically, I was having a hard time kind of figuring out what they were doing up front. I mean, it looked like that, they had Will Anderson and Dallas Turner sometimes dropping off into coverage. They didn't get consistent pressure, and then they didn't hold up in the back end. And that's a recipe for what we saw. It's a recipe for getting lit up. having said that, and I've been saying this for the last several years, and I know you guys feel the same way. What we consider to be good defense in this day and age is a lot different than what we consider to be good defense 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And no excuses for Alabama, but a lot of defenses get lit up now. And Tennessee's defense got lit up. Alabama lit them up. And I kept hearing everybody last week saying Alabama doesn't want to get into a shootout with Tennessee, but I was thinking just the opposite. I even had a feeling then, well, they're probably going to have to get into shootout. They're going to have to score some points to win, and Alabama can win those kind of games. When you got Bryce Young taking the snaps, man, you can score with anybody. But getting back to the defense, clearly it was a bad game, and I don't know the answer. I mean, this isn't the first time that this has happened over the last few years. Alabama's had some other games where they have given up points and yards, maybe not 52, but a lot. So all you can do is come back the next week and play. And I think, again, this isn't just an Alabama problem. This is a college football problem. It's hard to shut some of these offenses down. And, again, not making excuses for Alabama, but what Nick Saban has done here, it's really not designed to be done. I mean, you look at the Southeastern Conference. You have a really good team. You play for a championship, and then maybe a couple, 3 years later, you're down, whether it's through graduation or coaching changes or what have you. It's very hard to win at a high level and then stay at that level. And so I just think, truth be, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, Alabama's good. Yeah, they've got good players. But they're playing a lot of other teams that have good players. And they're playing a lot of other teams that have good coaches. And they're playing a lot of other teams that are putting millions of dollars of resources into their program.
Gary, hold those thoughts.
I think the reality is, Rob, they're just not going to win them all.
Yeah,
so
we're going to take a quick break. No, and I agree with you. And we're going to talk more about it with Gary Harris right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Gary Harris, I love what you said right before the break. It's not a just zero sums game, flat deal. Like, you're improving your facilities, you're investing millions of dollars, and nobody else in the league is. Everybody else is. You in the SEC, you got to wake up every morning like you live in the median on I-65 South going, you got to pull out of your driveway doing about 100 miles an hour. That's the reality. And what Nick Saban and Alabama have done since he came there in 2007, the next year, 12-0 regular season, it's nothing short of amazing. We know that, but there's just so many people coming at you. Here's Tennessee in year 2 with Josh Heupel sitting there at number 3 in the country. So the competition, it should be plenty to motivate Alabama. Talk about Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, Henry To'oTo'o. You told me the other day, you can't have your alpha males like Will Anderson with a 0 beside their name on the stat sheet in that Tennessee game. And we know sometimes great players that obviously they can take away a whole side of the field. But I would think, as fierce as a competitor as he is, he can't wait to get back out on the field. But, Cornelius Bennett, Derek Thomas, Chad Keys, there have been so many great defensive pass rushers, and he'll rank up there among the really good ones. But what are you looking for out of this Alabama team specifically to get better that concerns you, that keeps you up at night if you're a coach at Alabama?
Well, after that game against Tennessee, if I'm a defensive coach, whether I'm Pete Golding or Charles Kelly or Javarius Robinson or Freddie Roach or any of them, I don't know that I would have slept hardly at all this week, because I think there's plenty to keep you up. And you're right, Rob. If you're going to be an elite player, and I think that's certainly what we consider Will Anderson Jr. to be,
Yeah.
then you've got to adjust, and you've got to understand the attention that you're going to get, and then your teammates do as well. And if they're doing things to take Will Anderson out of the game, then other players have got to step up. And I think that's as much what we saw Saturday as just Will Anderson not having a productive game, was really who did, along that defensive front. I mean, I know Dallas Turner had the scoop and score, but that was really Tennessee not just functioning well. That was a mistake on Tennessee's part to put the ball on the ground. But for the most part, I guess you just, like you said, you go back to work and you try to get better and you try to figure things out. And Will Anderson Jr. last year, I thought, was a phenomenal football player.
Yeah.
I thought he had one of those years. Had he could have been able to come out for the draft last year, he might have been, the number 1 overall pick. And then this year, you go into the season and it's different, because everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows what you're capable of. Everybody game plans and says, you know what, we got to take 31 out of the game. And it's different. And it probably does become harder as a football player to put up the kind of numbers that you put up the year before. And I think we're seeing that happening. He has not been as a productive football player this year as he was last year, not just in the Tennessee game, but throughout the season. So I don't know. Again, I'm not a coach. My guess is they're going to look at everything that they do and schematically try to find a way to be more effective. At the end of the day, it's about players making plays. And you got to get pressure on these quarterbacks. And if you get pressure, that helps your back end. And if you don't get pressure, then this guy's going to have to be able to cover longer. And they weren't able to do either against Tennessee. Now, they're facing a different kind of team with Mississippi State. And Will Rogers certainly is an effective quarterback. But the air raid, he's going to get the ball out of his hands. It's not going to be as much looking down to go over the top the way Tennessee did. He's going to get out of his hands, and you got to tackle in space. They're going to run the quick throws, and they're going to try to get guys isolated. And pressure is going to be a little bit different. You're probably not going to be able to pressure him the same way that you would have liked to have pressured Hendon Hooker. So the game plan's got to be different, but it's going to have to be better. It's going to have to be more effective, and the players are going to have to execute. Like I told you earlier, I'm sitting here with 5 games to go, and I don't know how it's going to go for Alabama. I still think this. I think they're better than anybody else they play on their schedule, whether it be Ole Miss, LSU, Mississippi State, Auburn, and obviously the non-conference game. I think they're better than everybody else left. But the best team doesn't always win.
Yeah.
And I thought they were better than Tennessee, and they didn't win the game. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I think it's a combination of everything: coaching, playing, game planning. I mean, everything that they can do to be effective, they're going to have to look at it and get some things straightened out. And it's going to have to start on Saturday, because now the margin for error is gone. You lose another one, and you're not going to be in the college football playoff, and you probably won't be in Atlanta. So again, is it much Alabama, or is it the fact that now Alabama is more like everybody else in the league? They're a good team, but they're flawed, and they can be beaten. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Well, last night, I was watching the Grizzlies and the Nets, NBA, game 1. And, I mean, that thing went to overtime. These guys are fighting like it's game 7 of the NBA championship. And we were reminded of that recently by our good friend Ben Troop, All-American at Florida and played in the NFL 5 years. He said the reason why you see NFL teams with the starters out there late in the season, still on the field with a big lead or way behind, is they're trying to hit their bonuses. I mean, when you're getting the check for it, you play your arse off. I mean, that's how it is. And there's accountability like you wouldn't believe. You can be cut so fast. A lot of those guys are on 10-day contracts. Well, let's look at that in college now. Gary, we hadn't really gotten into this. You got an NIL deal, and you're getting paid a lot of money. You feel a lot of pressure as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old that you probably hadn't felt before, don't you?
Yeah, I think the pressure they feel is it's multifaceted. Yeah, I really do. From NIL to trying to get ready to come out early for the draft, and knowing that you're trying to put stuff on tape for the NFL scouts, and then having people in your ear about the portal. And one thing that's happening, Rob and Jimmy, is at all these schools, as soon as superstar, Jimmy John comes out of high school and he gets to school and it doesn't go as quickly for him as he would like, or more particularly the family or the people that, have kind of shaped his career would like, many of them are in his ear. Man, you're better than that. You got to get out of there, man. They're not giving you a fair shake. And all that sets in. So then you've got guys on your team, many of whom aren't happy with their playing time. And you're trying to say, yeah, it's all about the team first. But I don't know that every guy believes that anymore. And that's another aspect of coaching that I think has changed. These players, what the coach used to say was gospel. That was the word, and you didn't question it. And if you did question it, too bad. Now players have leverage and they know it. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying it's reality. Players have leverage and they don't take everything the coach says all the time as gospel, and they will question it. And the coaches know that the players have options. So I think it changes the way you coach. So yeah, there's a lot going on with these guys, not just in terms of the collective effort as a team, but individually what their options are and what they're looking at. And maybe sometimes they get, their attention gets taken away from what should be the number one goal, which is to try to help the team win, to what is happening with me, whether it's with my class schedule or, whether, it's with people at home telling me this and telling me that. So I think it's harder than ever before to get a team to come together and really block out all the noise and be focused on the number one goal, which is to try to win football games and play for a championship.
Yeah, Gary, look, I know you got to get on and do your show. Let people know how they can tune in, listen, and follow you, and look forward to this every week. You're fantastic.
Well, thank you, Rob. I'm on Twitter at Gary Harris _WVUA. My radio show on Tide 100.9 FM. You can download the Tide 109 app. You can stream it live at Tide109.com. WVUA23.com is I work for the WVUA23 television station owned by the University of Alabama commercial station. You can stream us live there. And, if you follow Alabama, I think we have a ton of good Alabama content and SEC content over all periods. So would love for people to check it out. Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely, man. And Gary's right. They cover a lot. Jimmy, NIL, I'm paying Jimmy Hodge $1 million a year. And you've got 50% of the stats that you had the previous year before I signed you up. Are we going to have a conversation about, look, man, that contract, as Shoney always says, the big print giveth, the small print at the bottom of the page taketh?
No, I don't think so. I think, especially in the case of Alabama, the pressure of playing there is just different than almost everywhere else, in addition to the other intangibles Gary was discussing. But also, I think especially last Saturday, I don't think these players, especially the highly touted players, were helped by, frankly, the scheme that Alabama employed defensively. It was very passive. They didn't move their guys around a lot to make the offense have to look around every play, in other words, to find out where 31 was. And you've got the best speed pass rush in the sport when you add Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell to Will Anderson, and you don't blitz much at all in the game. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but when you got a three-man front, men rushing against five blockers, you're not going to get a lot of sacks. And what Tennessee did was, in contrast, they blitzed a majority of the time, and lots of times it was delayed blitzes a couple of seconds after the ball was snapped, which really catches an offense off guard and can really catches the offensive line off guard, because they're not expecting anybody to come lots of times on a late blitz. So I thought the difference in philosophies was very evident. And although Tennessee gave up a ton of yards, they were constantly trying to make adjustments to stop Alabama.
Yeah. Jimmy, here's another one for you. Looking around not just at Alabama, but top to bottom in the SEC, who really, other than what we've seen out of Georgia, has anything close to an elite defense this year in the SEC?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because it can change from a game to game depending on who you're playing. And people tend to forget that Georgia was very fortunate to win at Missouri. This is a Missouri team that 7 days earlier couldn't have lost under more gut-wrenching circumstances than they did at Auburn. I mean, that has to be the most unlikely loss for a team in college football history when you're one step away from winning a game and your running back decides to change hands on how he's holding the ball. I mean, you just can't make it up.
I agree. Hey, Jimmy, I agree. Look, Franz Beard, the Iron Duke, the world, here's the deal about Franz Beard. He is perhaps the world's most interesting Gator. Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com down in Gainesville, the swamp. We won't back down. That inspired that 81-yard. He broke 17 tackles. Some guys tried to tackle him twice. Anthony Richardson, what a play. But Franz, man, this is college football season. It's the grind. You got to just, as Tony Allen, Oklahoma State Cowboy, Memphis Grizzly emeritus, you got to just grit and grind, keep going. It's a long season. And Jimmy just touched on it when I'm talking about the defense. He goes, it depends on who you're playing. But what are your takeaways, your daily thoughts, your pithy thoughts about the Gators, the SEC, and what we're seeing on the table in this college football season 2022? As we remember, 45 years ago, Leonard Skinner's plane went down. Ronnie Van Zant, Cassie Gaines. We lost Steve Gaines, some of the greatest band of all time. I'm including Beethoven and Mozart. They're that good, but
well, let me put it this way. I'm a Gainesville guy, so I'll put Tom Petty up there. And and I got to tell you something. We had the case of the lowest class ever Saturday at the Swamp. And now this did not affect the outcome of the game at all. But it's Tom Petty Day. We have Tom Petty's family down on the field. Special light show set up to where people could put their phone app on and hold it up, and all of a sudden, every time the music changes, it was spectacular. So with a minute and a half to go before the timeout's up, guess what the LSU band does? They start playing their fight song. And I got to tell you what, that is low class, low rent. I turned around and told their SID, I said, that is, that lacks class. And he just laughed. And I said, that's why people hate you guys.
Friends, does this dress make me look fat? I like the truth.
It did not change the outcome of the game. It's like, okay, the alleged roughing the passer on Gervon Dexter, and I say alleged because that was a perfect form tackle. He's a foot away when the ball is released. You're talking 6'7", 320 pounds. I mean, what's he supposed to do? Sign up for the Bolshoi and do a pirouette and avoid this and avoid the hitting the quarterback? But you watch the film, perfect form tackle, arms wrapped around and held together like this. This was not a roughing the passer. Now that doesn't change, may not change the outcome because Florida would have had to score to tie the game. And of course, with Florida's defense, LSU would have had time to score again, which they very well could have done, given Florida's propensity for giving up chunk plays in that ball game. But, Florida is the parallels between Florida 2022 and Louisiana 2018, Billy Napier's first year, are unbelievable. At this point in time in the 2018 season, Louisiana was 3-3. They had scored 209 points, given up 224. Opponents were already 40 for 77 on third down, and they were just getting chunk plays on third down all the time. And then the next year, what happens? They go 11 and they finished 7-7 that year. They go 11-3 the next year, and all of a sudden they're giving up 19.7 points a game. The defense went from like 97th to 47th, in 1 year. And what happened was Billy Napier purged. I mean, he got rid of players.
Franz, hold those thoughts. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I want you to continue this story because this is all making sense of why Billy Napier is the head coach of Florida. We'll talk more.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
You were making some great points before we went to the break. Here's the ball. Run with it.
Well, here's the thing that Louisiana was a team that had a lot. Billy did not purge all the players from the year before. Now, they had some good players. They had 3 good running backs, and one of them was Elijah Mitchell, and then the Regas kid, and they had some good running backs, etc. But what they didn't have was they didn't have the people in the trenches that could get stops. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get to the passer, and so there was a purge. Now, here let's have a little math here. I know Jimmy's up to it. I don't know if you are, Rob. It might be too early in the morning for you to be doing advanced math, but let's do some. Florida's got 85 on scholarship. They have 4 seniors total, 17 juniors total. Okay, they've got 21 committed players. They're planning to get 28. Okay, 85 minus 4 is what? 81. Plus 28 is what? 109. Okay. That's just to have a signing class that gets you under the salary cap, as we call it now with the NIL, but under the limit of players, the 85 scholarship limit. So, and they're planning to bring in transfers. So let's make that 109, say 120. Okay, that means 35 have to go. And he did not do the purge this year. A lot of people thought he would. He did not. He's let guys stay. Josh Braun, who was a 4-star tackle who Florida flipped from Georgia, has already said, "Oh, look, I've only played in 2 games. I'm going to preserve my red shirt and go." I had people pant in a panic. Oh my God, the offensive line depth. He's played in 2 games. He's the number 4 guard, and he's the number 5 tackle. So we're talking about the 3rd best offensive line in the country according to Pro Football Focus right now. So if you're that buried on the depth chart, well, okay, take off and go if that's what you feel you need to do. So we're in a transition year, no doubt about it. I think I look at what the Gators have done. They are 4-3. They could be 7-0. There is not a game that they've played that they couldn't have won. But of course, given the way their defense has done things, every game's an adventure. They could also be 1-6 right now, just as easily. But they are 4-3. They've got 5 games. They got 5 games coming up. Could they go 8-4? Sure. Could they even go 9-3? Anything's possible. Although the way Georgia's playing defense right now, yeah, I look. You guys know how much I dislike Georgia, but I got to tell you something. That defense this year is better than the one they had last year. Will Muschamp is an absolute freaking genius when it comes to defense, and if he stays at Georgia a long time, they're going to be scary. Do you realize they've only given up 300 yards twice all year? I mean, and this is with a team that only has 7 sacks in 7 ball games. I mean, they just cover and tackle. That's all they do. And you're just not gonna score on them. You're not gonna do this on them. You're not gonna do that on them. They are that good. And Will Muschamp, I give him credit. When he was here, he was a great defensive coach. He just never had an offense, and he left an NFL defense for Old Yeller. I mean, you look at that defense that Jeff Collins coached. Everybody thinks Jeff Collins was a real genius. Well, guys, the 3 of us could have been the defensive coordinators with that defense, and we would have been top 5 in the country. Jimmy Smart, I know he would have been the head guy there. He'd have been the guy in the booth. I'd have been the guy down the sidelines in charge of throwing the clipboard.
Well, think about that. Arkansas, after the first 5 games this year, Drew Sanders, was like 7 sacks. As a team, they had 21. And here's Georgia now at 7-0 with a total of 7 sacks. That's 1 a game. You typically look at teams that make the college football playoff. Those 4 schools will average between 45 and 55 sacks each. And this Georgia defense doing it with 7, only giving up over 300 twice. That's great coaching, but you've got great players and great depth on the 2 and 3 depth chart on that front 7.
You got a great scheme. Great scheme going. Florida.
Kirby's a genius with defense too, and him and Muschamp together. That's with losing Dan Lanning to Oregon. And Oregon, since they played Georgia, is averaging 44 points a game.
Oregon is going to get clunked this weekend.
Yeah.
They get UCLA, and it's going to be meet Mr. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, because DTR, I'm shocked, guys, that he's not being mentioned more prominently in the Heisman race, because he has been magnificent. He has been to UCLA as what good or greater than what Hendon Hooker has been at Tennessee. Just absolutely tremendous there. Chip Kelly, I think, can run the table in the Pac-12 this year. He's already beaten Utah. He's gonna beat Oregon this weekend. He's better than Southern Cal.
Yeah.
Southern Cal is the great myth of the year. I mean, Lincoln Riley can coach some offense, but that defense still sucks. Yeah. And they're gonna whoever they play that's good is gonna score 40 on them. Count on it. They are the West Coast version of Florida. Put Florida out on the West Coast. Florida would be 7-0 right now.
Yeah.
But this is the SEC, and we do play big boy football in this league.
Yeah. Chip Kelly committed to the youth movement several years ago, said, hell, this is a mess. I'm going to get players in here and just look to the future. A guy that went to 4 straight BCS bowls at Oregon, went to the NFL like a lot of coaches do, and it's just a totally different game, literally. I'm impressed. He's a smug, unhappy little man, and most people don't like him, probably never will, but he'll win a lot of football games. He's from New Hampshire, Jimmy.
Well, there's some pretty good coaches that have come out of New Hampshire, and I'll tell you, though, Thompson-Robinson is having the type of year that everybody thought he was going to have last year. Last year, he really struggled with the passing aspect of the game, and he lost his confidence. But again, it says a lot that once you fit into a scheme over time, you all of a sudden start to get it. And in that aspect, I think he's so similar to Anthony Richardson. That's why I think it's so important for Richardson to come back next year, even though there might be some NFL teams that would take a shot at him, and especially if they're set with a quarterback who can, teach him the ropes and all that. But I think Richardson just really needs game experience. Another year of it in the SEC would really serve him well. But in regard to that game against LSU, Franz, I really thought the difference in the game was that this is not the Jaden Daniels I had seen all year long at quarterback for LSU. And when I was watching the game, McElroy was pointing out that he had talked with both Brian Kelly and the offensive coordinator, and they said what they really wanted to do with Daniels. And I think the Florida coaching staff could copy this idea. Was we want Daniels to be not faster with his feet, but faster with his decisions. And then let your feet take care of yourself. And that's the first time, Franz, all year I had seen Daniels go through progressions. And when he went back to pass, and he looked comfortable doing it. And then when there was an opportunity to run, he would do it. But he was a completely different player. And I see Anthony Richardson, if he can duplicate that scheme, I think he could be almost unstoppable.
Well, here's the thing about Anthony. Anthony is a great athlete playing quarterback. He hasn't gotten to the point where he's a quarterback who happens to be a great athlete. And people don't understand that there is a difference between the two things. I can be a great athlete playing quarterback and have zero instincts and an inability to process information in a hurry. And that's where Anthony is right now. I'll go back to the Kentucky game. And the Kentucky game, that first interception they threw that sets up their touchdown and kind of set the tone for the whole ball game. He is rolling out to his right. The linebacker is staying about 8 to 10 yards outside of him to keep him contained. There is a lane that is as wide enough to drive 3 semis through, and he needs 4 yards. So what does he do? He keeps rolling out and tries to throw it when all he needed was 4 yards. And if he had turned upfield, he not only would have had the 4, but he would have had another 10 to 15 before anybody could have touched him. You may have seen a run similar to the one that he made against LSU that went 81 yards. But this is where the issue is with Anthony, and that is he is hesitant on things. It's like in the LSU game, we have a 4th down, and there's a throw that's a bad throw. I don't know if you remember it, to Justin Shorter on a 4th down. Anthony hesitated. If he throws when Shorter makes the break, it's an easy pitching catch, and Florida may even score on the play. As it is, he hesitates just a second, then he makes the throw, and he's wide to the left, and Justin Shorter can't reach out far enough to make the catch. It turns out to be a bad throw, but really, the throw wasn't the thing. It was the decision making that was the real issue, because he hesitated there for a second. And when you're in the pocket, particularly on a 4th down in a situation like that, and you've called a passing play, you cannot afford to hesitate. You got to make your decision and go with it. And he did not do that. He didn't do that well. And this is, Jimmy, you're exactly right. This is what he needs. I mean, I'm looking at Dorian Thompson-Robinson's stats right now, and he's thrown 15 touchdown passes this year to only 2 interceptions, hitting 75%. He's only run 42 times in 6 games. 7 times a game is not going to wear a quarterback out. And that's where Anthony needs to be, running anywhere from, say, 6 to 10 times a game. And let's just say half of them are scrambles and half of them are designed. But that's where he needs to be. And he's not there yet. But that's where he needs to be. And he's got to make that next step. And when he makes that next step, Florida's going to be really, really good. They've got, I think, two running backs that I think anybody in the SEC would love to have. I think the only running back I've seen that's better than Montrell is Jahmyr Gibbs. Yes. And I love the Sanders kid at Arkansas, but I got to tell you what, I'll take Montrell. I really will. Montrell is he can get you the power yards. He's proven he can break away. People didn't think he could break away when he came here. They thought they had a guy that was a long run for him would be 7 or 8 yards, but he's broken at least one 30-yard run in 6 of the 7 games.
Yeah. Franz, all that is great stuff. And I got to ask you this now. Florida got a win in game 1 against Utah. Utah was number 7 in the country. And then they beat Southern Cal the other day. We don't know how good the Pac-12 is. I mean, UCLA's undefeated. Oregon's doing great, but when they played Georgia, they were curb stomped. I mean, it was embarrassing. So you got to put that in a separate category. Of the remaining teams on Florida's schedule, they're 4-3. Mm-hmm. Georgia's one of them. Who's going to be their signature win within the conference this year? If it's not Georgia, is there an opportunity for a signature win?
Beating the Aggies in Kyle Field would be huge for Florida, simply because the last couple of times I've been to Kyle Field, which was 2020, was one of them. They were beaten there. They need that win, and particularly they need that win over Jimbo Fisher, who continues to come to the state of Florida and poach players. And Florida needs this win to kind of send a message to kids, hey, you need to be thinking Florida. You don't need to be thinking Aggie land, They really and truly need to beat the Aggies out there. Not only that, it would be a road win. And you're talking about signatures. Getting that first important road win in conference play is huge. I think you both of you guys can relate to that. Looking back on great teams, the great teams win on the road. The good teams win on the road. The average teams win at home. Yeah. And that's it. And they've got to go on the road and show that they're capable of not only hanging with teams, but we know that the Gators can hang with anybody. They've got, despite the genuine lack of speed in the secondary, Florida, it's interesting. It's an interesting thing, but Florida's corners have to help the safeties, not the other way around. Because guys, the three of us could outrun most of our safeties. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know about y'all, but my body is a little bit past its prime. I'm 71 years old. I'm not quite as lean and quick as I used to be. And our safeties are just flat out slow. I mean, the only way I can describe it is we got safeties that can tackle. We have tremendous tacklers among our safeties. That's not a problem. Our problem is they can't run. And here, I'll give you an adequate description of the Florida defense. We got one pass rusher in Brenton Cox Jr. who gets doubled and tripled.
Yeah, hold those thoughts. We're going to take a break. We got time for one more question before we get to the next guest, but we're going to be right back in after this quick break because I see where you're going with this, and it makes a lot of sense.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Since you were making a great point before the break, go ahead and finish that because people need to hear it.
Well, Florida's got one pass rusher. That's Brenton Cox Jr. He gets doubled and tripled every play. He is probably leading the country in almost sacks because once he gets through all the double teams and gets to the quarterback, he's always this far away when the quarterback makes the play, which really doesn't help a lot. We got one defensive tackle who's any good. That's Gervon Dexter. We got two linebackers, one of whom can tackle, the other and can't cover. The other one can cover and can't tackle. We got corners that are all freshmen and sophomores. Yeah. Our safeties are slow. Other than that, it's a wonderfully designed defense. They are just absolutely ripping and shredding through the SEC. Yeah, but that's those are minor little details that Billy Napier has to deal with, and they are minor little details.
Listen, Franz, I love having you on here, and you make so much sense. He is perhaps the world's most interesting man/Gator from the swamp in Gainesville, Florida. He is Franz the Iron Duke Beard. Tell people how they can follow you, keep up with you, because you put out great content. You, Buddy Martin, the whole GatorBait.com staff every day.
Well, it's at GatorBaitMedia.com, and if you come to our site, you'll notice that we're making a lot of very nice aesthetic changes, and we'll have some other changes that'll deal with content, etc., like that. But the whole site is changing and looking better, and so forth like that. But the content's good, and I'm going to have for our magazine, I'll have a great basketball story tomorrow, and Florida. Don't sell Florida basketball short.
No, not with Golden.
With Colin Castleton, if he stays healthy, Florida will be an NCAA tournament team capable of making it past the first weekend. Yeah. Because we've been privy to practices, and I got to tell you what, I'm watching it, and I'm thinking to myself, if they'd had Kyle Lofton, for example, at the point the last 3 years, they'd have won 25 ball games a year at least. Yeah. The kid's he is a man playing with the boys.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch. Franz, thanks so much. We'll talk later this week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
You bet. He's talking about Johnny Ballpark. Franks will be on here with us momentarily from up in Nashville, and he's with us right now. And I looked up yesterday, and I think I recognized this place where the SEC men's and women's basketball media days are going on, the Bohemian Hotel there in Mountain Brook next to the Char Bar. Man, what a nice hotel. I mean, this ain't Motel 6. This is really nice. But Johnny Ballpark, Franks, I got to ask you a question. I saw something on social media where the Auburn basketball, Bruce Pearl and a couple of the players and some people were getting on one of the Auburn University jets. I don't know if it's a Citation or, if it's a Challenger or a Falcon 900. But why would you spend that much money to get up and just go right back down when you can drive to Birmingham in about an hour and 45, 50 minutes? I mean, it's a quick trip. I mean, golly. But we'll pay $135 to go watch an Auburn team play against Western Kentucky or whatever the ticket prices are. It's crazy. But Johnny, help make some sense out of this, please.
maybe it's one of those things where it's a great recruiting tool saying, hey, we don't even drive from Auburn to Birmingham. We fly. We want to make our presence known. We remember the words from Bull Durham, the movie. I want to announce my presence with authority.
There you go.
So maybe that's what they were doing there.
Well, when Alan Green was athletic director at Auburn, Auburn got a lot of miles on the Hound. Those who take the Hound get there on time. So things are getting better. They've got some money. Okay, Johnny, I want to hear your take on college football, man. Over 13,000 interviews. You've interviewed more Heisman Trophy winners than ever. But we also want to remember the legend, R.I.P., rest in peace, Charlie Trippi passed away yesterday over in Athens.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because, here's a guy, it's interesting. The year he finished for the as the runner-up for the Heisman Trophy in 1946, if you look at the top 4 finishers that year, Glenn Davis from Army wins it. Charlie Trippi finishes second. And this was after he had just got back from, representing the U.S. fighting for our country in World War II, by the way. On number 3 on that list, Johnny Lujack, who won it the very next year, who I've had the privilege of having on my show. He is the oldest living Heisman Trophy winner. He finished 3rd that year, then wins it the following year. And then on number 4 on that list that particular year in 46 was Doc Blanchard, who won it the previous year. So 3 of the top 4 finishers that year for the Heisman won the Heisman eventually, or had previously won it. The only one on that list, Charlie Trippi. But here's a guy that goes on not only becoming a member of the College Football Hall of Fame, he was also inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well, where he was the oldest living College Football Hall of Famer, passing away, and he'll certainly be missed.
Oh, absolutely. That legacy will live on forever. And Georgia, Mount Rushmore, Frank Sinkwich, Charlie Trippi, Herschel Walker, Fran Tarkington, Bill Stanfield. There's a lot of them. You could even put Pat Dye up there. Fran Tarkington said Pat Dye and Mike Ditka were the 2 greatest football players he ever played with. That's tall company. Johnny.
All right. My take on the college football world. I'm going to ask you a question, trivia question for you. Over the weekend, obviously Alabama losing to Tennessee by 3. Tennessee puts 52 points on the board. It's the highest point total against Alabama. You have to go all the way back, to 1907, a 54-4 loss to Swanee. Since the start of 2013, how many times do you think an opponent has scored 40 or more points against Alabama?
9 times.
14 times.
Okay.
And in those 14 times, Alabama has gone 6-8. The only year Alabama did not surrender 40 or more points against an opponent at least once during that season, you have to go is 2017. That's the only time. So every year, even the national championship teams from 2013 to present, Alabama, just had a clunker of a game from a defensive standpoint. Alabama's got way too much talent on defense to be surrendering 52 points. At the same time, though, look at all those players you see on Sundays playing in the NFL that played defense for Alabama. At one point or another, except for one lone season, 2017, Alabama's defense gave up a lot of points.
Well, Jimmy made a good point earlier in today's show about it really depends a lot on who you play. Jimmy, I know you might want to challenge Johnny on that one. Jump in here.
No, I just think the game has changed so much in the last 15 years, even where you're seeing these 4 and 5 wide receiver sets, which is forcing defenses to cover all 53 1/3 yards, which is sideline to sideline. And not many college football teams certainly can play man-to-man effectively on 4 receiver sets with the speed that these elite teams have nowadays. And again, the rules are just so much in favor of the offense. I mean, some of these pass interference calls and then defensive holding, it's really, really tough on these defenses to try to keep pace. But Yeah, Johnny, I wanted to see what your quick review of this Alabama-Tennessee game was, because I've said it several times, because the total yardage, 571 for Alabama, 569 for Tennessee, and 40, I think 7 of those yards for Tennessee were on the final 2 plays, which was inexcusable to only rush 3 guys. And I just thought defensively Alabama was passive the whole game. They didn't make adjustments. They blitzed very little, whereas Tennessee was making adjustments the whole game. They blitzed the majority of the time, and they moved their players around to give Alabama a different look. And although, they weren't overly successful or very successful at all, on a couple of key occasions they did by blitzing, especially on that 3rd down play on Alabama's last possession when they forced Bryce to throw it early. Although we know that, in O'Brien's defense, the Jahmyr Gibbs drop on 2nd down was fatal, because if he catches that ball, he's still running.
Well, and the same thing with Holden as well. That's a couple of touchdowns we're talking about. The other part, too, is one thing to have the spread offense where you're spreading everybody out and you have to do the man-to-man. If you also throw in that component, a quarterback who can also do some damage with his legs, it's almost impossible to keep a team under 30 in that situation. You're going to have some bad nights, obviously, and things don't click for whatever reason. But when you have what Tennessee brought to the table on Saturday, a team that was focused, a team that believed that they could finally end that long losing streak, and then you throw a quarterback in the mix who, if you don't stay honest with him, fine, cover the receivers, I will beat you with my legs too. That just creates the perfect storm in a way to run up a lot of points, even against talented defensive players that Alabama brings to the table.
Johnny, looking at the way defense is played now, you said since 2013, Alabama's given up more than 40 points 13 times. Another interesting stat was
14 times. 14 times
yeah,
now. Yeah.
So go back and look when Alabama, about 7 years ago, averaged in the low 30s per game. They made changes with their offense and they got into the mid 40s. So you look at 2019, the 2 losses that Alabama had were LSU scored 46, Auburn scored 48. That's when I think the defense took a significant shift downward in terms of saying, hey, we're going to line up and hold people to 12 points a game. I mean, look at what Georgia did last year. Now, they played in the East. It wasn't as strong last year, but still in the SEC championship game, that Georgia defense was crushed over 40 points by Alabama, but they came back and won the national championship. I think that defensively, Jimmy's right, and you're both y'all are right. You're asking teams every week to do something a lot of times completely different than what they did the week before. The game of football, college football, used to be where it came right at you. Now it runs away from you. So a 260-pound linebacker like Dante Hightower out of Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, who loves hunting and fishing and dipping, that guy is a dinosaur in today's college football world, isn't he?
I'll give you another stat. You go back to Alabama's first national championship under Nick Saban. The last 7 regular season games, you know how many points they gave up total over the last 7 regular season games of 2009? 58. And Tennessee put 52 in just one on Saturday. When I had a chance to visit with Nick Saban during SEC Media Days back in 2019, I asked him the question, what advice he would give Nick Saban, the first-year head coach in 1990 with Toledo. And he starts laughing and he says, run the spread. That was the most important advice Nick Saban in 2019 would give Nick Saban in 1990, run the spread. And that just shows you, at times we see these defenses able to combat it, but you throw in the mix, once again, the winning formula, do the spread, have a quarterback who is very mobile, like certainly Tennessee has, and that is a dangerous combination right there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and Pete Golding, he's still got Nick Saban to work with him. And I just look at the defenses around the country. You think you've got a good defense. and then you just get thrashed. Johnny, I got to ask you about Florida State. And I say to this, they were 4-0. Now they're 4-3. Where are they slipping, and how are they going to turn this around? I was hoping they could win 9 or 10 games this year. They're good for college football. Absolutely, there are certain programs that are good for college football, and Florida State is one of them. Florida State with Chief Osceola. Johnny Ballpark Franks will throw the spear from Renegade, and this crowd comes to their feet at the Doak S. Campbell Stadium on this home, balmy, hot Saturday night in Tallahassee. I love Gene Deckerhoff. Please, I want to get him on the show. Anytime, he's welcome.
Saturday, Alabama was outcoached, and it's not the first time Alabama's been outcoached this year. At Florida State, Mike Norvell is outcoaching himself. And this is where we're talking about a program trying to be, once again, atop the college football world like it enjoyed under Bobby Bowden. Had a glimpse of it with Jimbo Fisher before he ran the program into the ground, especially with the lack of offensive linemen. But the problem with Mike Norvell, during the week, you wonder about like the kicking game, and the kicker who, he has struggled over the last 2 seasons. I mean, I go back to the Florida game where he whiffs on an onside kick there with Florida State trailing by 3, misses the football. It's one of these situations where he's out thinking himself. I go back to the last 2 minutes of the first half against Clemson. Go into the locker room down by 3. Give yourself a chance. Instead, because of coaching decisions, they, instead of, going into the locker room down by 3, they give Clemson the ball back. Clemson is now up by 10, and then bam, all of a sudden that 10-point lead becomes 17, then 20 before Florida State gets its act back together in the second half. So, and you saw this again, earlier against North Carolina State. Florida State could be unbeaten right now. It was one of these situations where you can't, shoot yourself in the foot like they did in the final minutes of the first half, early part of the second half. Those are the things that need to get corrected. Am I liking what I see? Yes, but Mike Norvell still needs to learn. Butch Jones never learned this when he was head coach at Tennessee. When you make this transition to a Power 5 conference, you've got to also learn how to win games as a head coach of a Power 5 conference team. Mike Norvell is still going through that, just like Florida State is still trying to get back on the same path. They're doing some wonderful things. I like the direction the program is headed, but everybody has to do some self-evaluation because there's, they all have to learn from these experiences. It's not just the players, it's also coaching decisions as well.
Well, in the financial services industries, stock picking especially, paralysis by analysis, you just can overdo it. You can't think too much. We're going to take a quick break. I want to get into a lot more. We got Johnny Ballpark Franks with us right now, folks. This is the Smithsonian equivalent cerebrally for the Heisman. Over 13,000 interviews. You can learn a lot from him. Get him, Jimmy together. It gets flat and Scruggs type good. That's what I call it when people really mesh together. 2 peas in a pod, as Uncle Jed would say on the Beverly Hillbillies. But remembering again, Johnny Ballpark Franks, we mentioned it earlier, a sad day 45 years ago. Leonard Skinner's plane went down in Gillsburg, Mississippi, right near Macomb, trying to land. They ran out of fuel. Artemis Pyle did a great tribute. I recommend you look at it. We'll be right back with more after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Brown back here with Johnny Ballpark, Franks, and Jimmy Hodge. And I want to say a thank you to some listeners of ours, Sandy Bell and his great family from Birmingham, Janet Bell. Sandy's been married for 60 years up there in Birmingham and was recognized, I wanted to say this at the Auburn LSU game, on the field before the game for generous financial support of Auburn University. He's an electrical engineering major from Auburn, but Janet Bell, great people. She's in Peachtree City. Does not ever miss an Auburn game. You expect the team to play a full 60, she stays the full 60. That family is hardcore. Definition of Auburn people, great Auburn people. Look it up in the dictionary, folks. Johnny, Jimmy, let's get it going. A lot of football to be played this year. And what's who are the great teams? I'm going to, take it from here, but is there a great team this year? Is there a, LSU in 2019, Nebraska 1995, Alabama in 1992 defensively out there?
Not in my mind.
Find out.
Go ahead, Johnny.
In the Big Ten competition, but I'm thinking Ohio State, Georgia certainly is capable of that. I think the whole thing with name, image, and likeness, especially with these top programs, I think all of these teams get impacted. And, because I was being asked this week, what's wrong with Alabama? And first of all, I wonder if it's too much process, too much big machine, and we've lost some of the emotions. I go back to what's happening with Alabama during their off week. We're talking about after they get through playing Mississippi State next week, they have the bye week before they get into their, the last of October and all the games in November. And we have players going out signing autographs for money. So it's now a business. I know that the traditional fans don't want to hear it, but it impacts these guys. They're being pulled in all kind of directions. It's great that you're getting the money, but you're not just getting the money. You have to do things also for that money. And it's almost like you're making grown-ups out of these 18, 19, 20-year-olds. I think Bryce has earned over $3 million so far. And he's not the only one that's had a sizable income. So it's not just being able to be a normal student athlete. You're now having to be, Will Anderson Incorporated. And this is impacting a lot of these programs. So when you see some really strange results on any given Saturday, just think about the other part of that mix. And some of these coaches, I don't know if Nick Saban ever totally adjusts and can deal with this new brand of college football. It's another element that nobody has ever anticipated to this point. And I blame college football. I blame the commissioners. I blame the presidents and ADs. If they had been proactive, we wouldn't be dealing with this now. I think it's certainly impacting some of these outcomes on any given Saturday.
Oh, no doubt about it. Jimmy's our car guy. He knows what kind of cars CJ Stroud at Ohio State drives a Bentley to practice. Seriously. Quinn Ewers, an Aston Martin. I thought only James Bond could drive an Aston Martin. And Robinson, Joan Robinson, the running back at Texas, drives a Lamborghini. Jimmy, make some sense out of this. You're not from the Midwest, but you think like a Midwesterner.
I don't know about that, but
you do. You're smart.
I do think that, Illinois wouldn't have a $220 billion pension liability situation. If that were the case, but anyway, yeah. I digress from there. I just think following this weekend, you're going to see the teams that are legitimate playoff contenders, like Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, until probably Thursday of next week. Pretty much their entire coaching staff is going to be on the road recruiting, because this is going to be the only real opportunity they're going to have between now and that big opening signing day in December to go out there and have personal visits to their key targets to, let's just say, make their best effort to close the deal. And then I think starting probably Friday, then they're going to get immersed into the LSU game plan. And as far as Alabama goes, they had I think best be looking very closely at that LSU Florida game, because as I mentioned to Franz Beard, Jaden Daniels was a completely different player. It's like all of a sudden it just clicked for him. Instead of what he'd been doing all year, if that primary receiver wasn't open, there were no progressions. He just started to run. But in this game, he went through his progressions and he looked very comfortable doing it. And as a result, he had a really good game throwing the ball. He looked like just a totally different player. So Alabama they really need to be focused on him and realize that they're going to have to cover all of the receivers out on patterns in that LSU game. But I just think Alabama, unlike the Tennessee game, they're going to have to move guys around and not show the same alignment defensively every play, and move your key players around like Will Anderson. Make sure that the offense has to think. They have to look around and not count on him being in the same spot almost every play, like what happened at Tennessee. So Alabama's got a lot of work defensively on that side of the ball to fix some things and not allow their opposing wide receivers to be matched up against safeties, which is what happened repeatedly in the Tennessee game, especially with Hyatt.
Right.
I mean, think about this. I mean, here we are 7 games in, and Alabama could easily be 4-3. You know, we're talking about a one play in Texas, a one play difference in Texas A&M, a one play difference, you know, certainly with the loss, it could have gone either way. You know, but we could be talking undefeated, but we could also be seeing 4-3. And the consistency part of all this, going back to even last year, is Alabama struggles on the road. They barely get by Florida last year. They lose to Texas A&M on the road. And this team, I mean, Mississippi State, can they beat Alabama? Yes. LSU, game being played in Baton Rouge. Can LSU beat Alabama? Yes. Game in Oxford, Ole Miss, can they beat Alabama? Yes. Even Auburn can beat Alabama. Ooh. I mean, so this team is not just a given that they're going to be making it to the SEC championship game and playing Georgia or Tennessee. I mean, they're still, and here's the thing about the other part of that. Tennessee, great, you beat Alabama. What have you accomplished? I mean, they're all ready to print up a national championship banners over in Knoxville. You haven't accomplished anything. And that's the strange thing when you look back about the success that Alabama has had since the start of 2008, that, you know, each week, you know, they've had to deal with this except for 3 weeks, the end of November in 2010, when they lose to LSU on the road. And that is that only 3-week stretch we're talking about in regular season play that the national championship has not been on the line for Alabama when the team has taken the field since the start of 2008. But the only thing that Tennessee's accomplished is the fact that now they have other opportunities. But everybody's now thinking, can Tennessee match up with Georgia? Well, you know what Tennessee better not be doing is overlooking Kentucky before they get to Georgia.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is everybody's getting better players. They're trying to catch Alabama. And if Alabama isn't constantly trying to get better themselves, if they start getting complacent, they're done. And I felt like you saw what happened. That you're right. The close win at Texas, the close win at home against A&M, they could be 4-3. Now, you know, are the wheels going to fall off? If Alabama doesn't approach this like for what's at stake, what's on the line, if they start going, well, we've won a lot and it's been great, they're going to get beat, because Jimmy's right. Jaden Daniels, he went from being a liability at quarterback. I think it's really too, he came in from Arizona State. It's taken him some time to adjust to life in the SEC. The game, everything is bigger and faster, and these road environments, wow, they're terrifying. So you look at this, Nick Saban, we all know he's a great coach, but all great coaches, you look at Coach Bryant, look at those big national games. I think his record, as great a coach as he was, I think it's the greatest ever, was around 500. The Notre Dames, the Southern Cal, the Nebraska type games outside of your conference. And keep in mind just how hard it is to get a true road win versus a top 10 opponent. LSU's been playing football since 1892. You know how many wins they have on the road outside of SEC games over top 10 programs, Johnny, in their history?
What's the number?
1. And that was against Texas in 2019. Because you and Jimmy are both making such salient arguments in that case. It's that tough. Alabama has the greatest tradition in all of college football. But Mississippi State doesn't care about that.
I will say this about Alabama, and you don't have to go back to the 1970s. Since 2010, Alabama has been in this situation before 8 times, where they lose a regular season game, and how do they respond? And as far as the regular season, they have responded, perfectly. Half of those years, they go on to win the national championship. Let that sink in. So 8 years, they suffer a disappointing loss in the regular season. They respond by winning 4 national championships, 1 runner-up, and then another one where they make a semifinal appearance in the college football playoffs. So 6 of those 8 times, they were in a position to still win the national championship.
Yeah.
So will this year's team be adding to that number, or will it be one of the 2 disappointing losses?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Look at the track record. This Alabama team has given up a lot of points. But again, this is not the Tennessee team of 2 or 3 years ago. This is not – and LSU, it went down to the wire last year. I mean, everybody in this league is trying to out-Saban. And age isn't the issue. Are his guys that hungry? Johnny, look, great segment as always with you. Absolutely love having you on. Tell people how they can follow you and listen to your weekly show and your social media address.
The best thing to do is just keep up with me on Twitter at BP Franks Show. You can also follow me on Facebook, Johnny Ballpark Franks. And then every Monday from 5 to 7, I'm always bringing SEC, Auburn, Alabama legends, Heisman Trophy winners, and more. Like this past Monday, I had Jarrett Johnson from Alabama and wide receiver great Byron Franklin from Auburn on the show.
Yep.
But it's every Monday on WUMP in Huntsville, 7:30 a.m., 103.9 FM. And you can also go to umpsports.com and listen online.
I love the ump in Huntsville, the smartest city in Alabama. Always has been, always will be. Hello, Ray Mooring and Phil Thompson. All right. Have a great one, Johnny.
You guys have a great week. Thank you as always.
Oh, you bet. All right. It is time now for the ECS House Industries Razorback Report with our good friend Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. If you love eating catfish, and I love catfish, that's the pride of the Delta. Town to Cherry Valley, Arkansas. That's where the headquarters in the 99,000 square foot warehouse of ECS House Industries are. They make the pulverizer, the better roller. You look at all the harvest going on out here in Arkansas and the Mid-South, all over the country. They are everywhere. Find your dealer, House Industries dealer, wherever you are. If you like eating, you'll love Farmers and you'll love ECS House Industries. But if you love catfish, all those aerators in those catfish ponds that you see everywhere, they're made at ECS House Industries. They're all over Alabama, Mississippi Delta, and Georgia. They're everywhere, and we're proud to have them as a sponsor. Chad House, our friend, great man over there in Cherry Valley, Wynn, Cross County, Arkansas. We were over in Newport again, getting over there more and more. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. I was so excited watching the Razorbacks up in Knoxville get that win, 52-35 over BYU. The student section was all riding mountain bikes and knocking on doors. It was crazy out there, but you got to be happy about that win, Dudley. Yeah, Dudley? Yeah.
It's better going into the bye week with a win instead of a loss, especially it would have been, a 4-game losing streak, 3-4. And I think some people might have stepped out on the ledge, but, with that win and the way they did it, with KJ coming back, having a good game, and a lot of the stars, making plays on both offense and defense, you had a pretty complete victory.
Well, you look at it, KJ Jefferson, I don't think BYU had seen anybody like him at the quarterback position this year. Arkansas goes out there, and it was like, wow, the SEC is just that much better top to bottom than any league out there. But I think Arkansas, that was one of the biggest wins because where was BYU ranked? 16th?
They were
17th
at one point and then lost to Notre Dame and dropped out. But yeah, it's a huge win both in terms of turning the season around and also just for the way they feel. There's a confidence factor that was starting to lag here, and I think they got it back over this break, and they'll get some guys healthy, and maybe the 72 people that are injured in the defensive secondary can get some of them back.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to have to go to a break because I know Jimmy's chomping at the bits to ask you some questions about that. But I know the folks over here at Red River Ford Toyota and when they're all, a lot of Razorbacks over here. I mean, and the question is the injuries, recruiting wise, and we're going to get more to this season, but are they in on some big time defensive backs? And it also starts with great pass rushers as well.
I think there's some here that hadn't played yet, but that red shirts, rule factors into that. I think we're going to see them down the line here.
Yeah, because I watch Arkansas, and I think in a couple of more recruiting classes, top 15, top 20 recruiting classes, then they're going to be more of a threat to line up and beat anybody they play. Dudley, health-wise, real quick, anybody come out of that BYU game banged up for the Razorbacks that's going to be out for a while?
No, I think it looks like that, the guys that were injured, and a couple of defensive backs, of course, because that's been the trend, but everybody that played in that game should be able to go in 2 weeks when they take on, in a week now, I guess, when they take on Auburn, which is interesting, a game where the two teams sit at the bottom of the SEC West schedule. Talk about a fork in the road for, a couple of teams.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, but the health wise for Arkansas, other than Jalen Catalon and Day Bishop, they should be as healthy as they've been all year going into that Auburn game.
Yeah. And that's why you recruit. Everybody says, why are you recruiting another quarterback or a defensive back or lineman? Because guys get hurt, and you're right. Injuries, they're going to come and bite any and everybody out there. And I sit there and I say to myself, Arkansas starts off, what a tough schedule. You get the win at Cincinnati at home, playoff team from last year, South Carolina, and then the A&M game, I don't know, that may have beaten them a couple of times. We're going to be right back with more after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Segment on this Thursday edition of Sidelines. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. This is the ECS House Industries Razorback Report. Jimmy, jump in here because, we talk about Jalen Catlin, and it's bad that he's out, but Razorbacks have found a way to win on the road at BYU. You think I think this could be a turning point for them, and they've got Auburn coming up. We don't know what we're going to get out of Auburn. Those kids won't quit playing, despite what the fans think about Brian Harsin and all. A lot of tough games left. A lot of football.
Yeah, and we all know about Arkansas's injury situation in the secondary. And one thing, Dudley, it looked like they were in midseason form. They gave up around 375 yards passing, but the Hogs more than compensated for that for putting up, I think, 644 yards of total offense. And then you had KJ, I think he was something like 28 for 38 for 385 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I think all 5 touchdown passes were in the second and third quarters. And yet, BYU, I think, cut the gap to 38-35, and then the Hogs responded and really capped it off with the Sanders 65-yard touchdown run, and I think he had 175 yards total offense. So that had to be a big relief, knowing that your offense is, back in gear. And I wanted to get your take on. We've heard about how boisterous the crowd can be in Provo, and with an SEC team coming in, what was that atmosphere like? And it seemed to me, though, that BYU just didn't have maybe the size and the speed of SEC defenses. And what do you see them maybe having to do to be a factor in the Big 12? And I think they may be entering the league as early as next year, or if not next year, it's going to be for the 24 season.
Yeah, I think BYU certainly has some very good skill players. We saw that in this offensive fireworks or defensive utility, however you want to put it. But the physicality at the line, I think that Arkansas clearly showed that. The biggest thing in that game, I thought, was the turnovers. BYU ended up having Arkansas one, had it early, and BYU, really didn't take advantage of it as they should have. Ended up punting, but I think that BYU has a very good coach. You can see they have very good players, but the defense, some would say maybe it was Big 12 standards, or at least from 12 last year. What I would say, though, is that you look at this Arkansas team, and it still gave up a ton of yards, and that's got to get better. I mean, once you get back to the competition, LSU, Missouri, Auburn, the other ones, the Liberty that's coming in, you're going to have to stop them. And it was really a 7-on-7 game for the longest time. Arkansas had a couple of stops. Then BYU couldn't get any stops. Arkansas scored on straight possessions, whether it was a field goal or a touchdown. And, that proved to be the key in what it really was, looking like a 7-on-7 game.
Mm-hmm. Dudley, I'm looking at the remaining games on the schedule. You nailed it in the preseason, and Jimmy agreed with you. Arkansas with the toughest schedule in the country, and it no doubt is. Your non-conference games are tough. Liberty is a really tough one. BYU and Missouri State was tougher than anybody, but that was Bobby Petrino coming back to Fayetteville. That guy he's one of the best offensive minds anywhere. But felt like Arkansas may have a better team, but not win 9 games, maybe win 7 or 8. And I hate it when I hear that term, but it is true. You look at it, the A&M game, that one hurts. Alabama, you're down 28-0. You score 23 straight points. So this team, they're fighters. You start plugging in the guys at different positions on offense, defense, special teams with better players. You win some of those games that you come up short. I'm convinced of that. What's going to be in these last 5 games? What's going to be the record? Obviously, you want 5-0, but what's going to be the record to think, in your opinion, because Arkansas, like nobody. What's going to be the record to make you think there's satisfactory progress on all levels, and this team is really, really, really on the right path?
Yeah, well, satisfactory for the fans, I think, would be 4-1, 5-0.
I just want to win every game too.
Yeah, as I said here, objective about it. I think get 4-3 with 5 games left. If you could be 3-2 against the schedule you've got, I think Auburn is even though it's at Auburn, it would seem winnable. Then you've got home games with LSU around the corner. Ole Miss has obviously been very, very tough, but again, you've got those teams at home, so that gives you, somewhat of an advantage. You go to Missouri. Missouri, I've been impressed with their fighting, that they've done all year. I still think they've got a good football team. It's just not translating into wins, and we all know that you are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, I think 3-2, and you get to 7-5, which is what I predicted to start the season.
Yeah.
didn't go into the false narrative of having to have 10 wins for it to be a successful season. And I know that is not what anybody, or at least very few, wanted the season to be. You know, once you win 9, you want to win 10. That's just
Sure.
expectations. But you could see losing the 15 super seniors that they had, that that it was going to be tough to replace some. And you had 4 games last year that could have gone either way. You could have easily been, as strange as it sounds, 11-2, or you could have easily been 7-6. After. So it could have gone either way. But I think you look at this team. Nobody wants to hear the thing about next year, but that's what happens. And one of the things that's happened during the bye week, Coach Pittman's talked about how Jalen Catalon may come back next year, which I don't think a lot of people did. And he's got, somewhere between 7 and 10 super seniors in that regard that would like to come back. You have those guys, you have a deep class, you move a year down the line, and you're continuing to make strides. They're not there yet. They're nowhere near it yet. As you've heard me say on this show, 1-22, pretty good. 1-44, getting better. 1-85, not where you need to be.
Yeah, and probably about 8th, 9th in the conference. And as they get better, and they're getting better players, they're owning their state. And then they're going into Texas, and you're going into Memphis, going into the deep South. That's what is going to make, I think, Arkansas better going forward. Are you happy with the quarterback situation? I mean, obviously KJ Jefferson got hurt. You saw the drop off there. Who's going to stick around? That's what you got to worry about the most, isn't it? With the portal making it so easy to leave, you get a backup quarterback that thinks he should be on the field. Very likely he's going into the portal.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see with Malik Hornsby because he did put a good game out there on tape, obviously. Mississippi State. I do think that KJ Jefferson took that as a challenge. There were some people around in the fan base talking about how, hey, maybe Malik Hornsby should be the guy. And I think, KJ showed up, took it as a challenge, and then did what he could.
Yeah.
But you have Malachi Singleton, who's coming in as as a freshman. He had a season-ending injury, but they really like him. You got Hornsby. It's going to be interesting. I see no way that the coaches will commit coaching malpractice and not bring some more people in here, whether it's another high school kid, which I doubt, or some transfer guys just to fill out the room. I mean, right now you've got 3 guys in the room. Maybe the 4th best quarterback on campus is a baseball pitcher named Austin Ledbetter, who had so much success with Brian and his high school team over the years. But they're going to have to solidify that quarterbacking room. Maybe KJ comes back. I think if you thought about it today, he would, and he has another year left. But if he doesn't, then you're going to be scrambling.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question that came from a listener, Ewell Gibbons. In Carrollton, Georgia, says, I'm scared as a fan of an SEC school. He says he is a Georgia fan. He says, with all the money that Arkansas has, Stevens, Tyson, Walton, long list beyond that, what happens if they all get together and say, how much do you need for NIL? Good question from Ewell Gibbons in Carrollton, Georgia. Thank you, Ewell.
Carrollton, Georgia, great place. My wife down in Sewanee, Georgia, which is very close to there, so I spent a lot of time in Carrollton while I was.
So she's from Sewanee. I didn't know and that's why she's a Braves fan.
Well, she's from Newport, but she, went to Scott there, and then but you mentioned he mentioned a lot of great businesses. One rich guy once told me that the reason he had so much money was because he doesn't give it to anybody else.
That's right.
So I don't really know how rich things work there, but what I would say is that Arkansas, I think, has a good NIL program. It could probably have a better one as you continue to go down the list. And I know I saw a story the other day. They're going to be sending some guidelines to schools here pretty soon, about the NIL. It's a new world. You continue to find ways to make it happen, but it is instead of under the table, as we all know it used to be, it's over the table. just trying to do the best. It truly is free agency with the portal recruiting and with the NIL now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that's just a good question from Yule Gibbons. And I just think the same thing. I deal with people as a financial advisor, have been doing it 31 years. Wealthy people, you ask them for $200, they want a written detailed plan. Again, that's why they have a lot of money, but it is the thought. So interesting question and a great answer. Jimmy?
Well, I think last but not least, Jerry Jones has been known, I'm sure, to make a financial contribution or two occasionally. And you mentioned, Dudley, about the guidelines the NCAA is set to make public. And actually, I saw a column this morning in The Athletic that those guidelines have come out. I have not had a chance to look at them, but it was written in that story that they are effective immediately regarding the collective. So I will be delving into that, as I'm sure all SEC schools will. And I think you're certainly right. This is a great time for the Hogs to have an open week. And you have Auburn coming off that home week. And I have no doubt there are more than a few players that have a score to settle from that fiasco at the end of the game 2 years ago. And I'm sure you being in Provo that was involved in that game 2 years ago happened to be in Knoxville over the weekend, and their work was not exactly stellar. But the good news is you won't be having them at Jordan-Hare a week from Saturday. But it should really be an interesting game, because I really was surprised, though, that when Auburn was down 21-0 in Oxford to Ole Miss, that they came back and cut the lead to 28-24 and actually had made that Ole Miss defense that everybody thought was so significantly improved. It made them look a lot like that 2020 defense. So as the season goes on, you just see a lot of storylines develop, and a lot of these teams, and you're going to see it with Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss, these schedules that are backloaded on the strength aspect of the equation is going to bring some really interesting results. And I think the Hogs are looking forward to this stretch.
Yeah, Jimmy, I like what Jimmy just said. I mean, and then Arkansas going to Auburn next week. You know, both of them down there. It's the fight for the cellar. I mean, but you know, you look at Arkansas's program. They love Sam Pittman. The fans love Sam Pittman. I think the Auburn players like Coach Harsin, and they won't quit. They will not stop trying. I don't think the Auburn fans, I think I think they have checked out. So it's going to be an interesting, but you know what, Dudley, we got a few minutes left. The Hogs are a program, though. If you're a Razorback fan, you got to love the direction they're going, because they're having fun. I mean, and they're not having fun losing, but they just got the right guy there. I'm a big optimist, but I do like him.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of people don't understand this, and Jimmy, you know this, that when you cover a football team, you can't be invested in whether they win or lose. Even if I went to the University of Arkansas and once worked in the basketball department, I can't care whether they win or lose. But I will tell you this, that this off week will be better for me, because I will not have to answer questions on how the program is going to heck and how last year was a mirage and all that. So that's easier on me. But I do feel better for the fans who put so much into it and invested, and certainly the players and the coaches. That Texas A&M game, they should be 5-2. Everybody would be, thrilled, but at least happy with where. Yeah. But it is just, as I said, it's just better for this week that they were able to go over there, get healthy, get their mindset right, and they'll have a better chance to finish strong because of that. And, for a while there, when it was 14-7 and 21-14, you were thinking, well, this is going to be another loss. And man, the off week is going to be fun. Maybe I shouldn't go out of the house.
Well, you're right. I mean, it's all how you look at it. And the fan base is, golly, last year was a mirage, and Everybody is so insecure. They're all looking at Alabama and Georgia, and then now Alabama is thinking, golly, like we said earlier with Gary Harris, could be 4-3. I mean, that close win at Texas, close win at home against A&M. You just better be grateful for what you have. Dudley, I want to say this. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help people with the expectation of getting nothing in return. And Dudley, do us a favor. Let people know how they can follow you. Keep up with your great work because we love having you on the ECS House Industries Razorback Report.
Twitter is Dead Sports, all lowercase, DED Sports. Work for Hogville.net. Very proud to be a member of that board and stories, and doing a really good job there. And Fearless Friday, going to pump out another couple of stories on high school teams today that as I continue to try to touch every high school in the state, in some way, whether being there, writing a story, or make sure I talk to the coaches and the programs there.
How many have you been to out of the 200 high school football programs in Arkansas so far?
Well, went to one more last week, so I think we're at 53. So
that is incredible. That absolutely, we love it. Hey, Jimmy, thanks. All of our guests will be back tomorrow as we are every Monday through Saturday. 680thefan.com, Podcast Park in Atlanta, Kicks 96.3 down in Alexander City and Lake Martin. Have a great one. See you tomorrow.